Welcome to shifting from grudge to grit, grace, and gratitude. If I have to be brutally honest, I've had to have a lot of grit over the last couple of weeks. As I just said to my co-host and our beautiful guest, Julie, running events is not for the faint at heart. So I am sitting here after having a very busy day driving around, but needless to say, we show up and we are present. Welcome, Julie, who's all the way from Los Angeles and he's also, what's the time? After 6 in the morning, you mentioned it's there right now.
Yes, that's
And then
right.
Jamila, always a blessing to have you back on. I just thank you. And just as we have it, I have just asked for a bit of a headache tablet, which I just got, because I do have a
Oh
little bit of a
no.
slight headache. But I'm here, I'm showing up and present. We are going to look like it, have a problem with Instagram for those that are going to try and dial in from Insta. And then I'm going to hand over to you just to greet, and I'll read the bio afterwards.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Anissa. And I'm so sorry that you're not feeling so great today, but I thank you for showing up nonetheless, as you always do. And a very warm welcome to Julie. Thank you for being here with us. You've come, gotten ready early in the morning. We said it's what, 6:30 your time in LA. So we're really appreciative and thankful that you're here and that you're going to spend this hour with us. And can't wait to hear all of your amazing stories as you've journeyed through life and to share with us some valuable tips on how to make our lives better.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's a thrill. I'm a fan of you both. I love the show. So it's a great honor for me to be here with you today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Julie. So
Thank you, Anissa.
let's read what the topic is about today, and we're going to dive into owning your career, authentic moves, bold decisions, and resilient comebacks. A career strategist, executive, and author of Thrive and Shine. I love that. Julie shares how to stop seeking approval, trust your own voice, take bold action before you feel ready, and bounce back from setbacks without shrinking. Just a little bit more about her. A fresh story driven guide that helps early career professionals. I think that's the ignite your career journey with confidence and grace. And 25 years of experience in total within the corporate space. So I'm keen to hear past tense corporates and a different role now. I'd love to learn more. And then also non-profit leadership. That's an interesting um, mention in your bio. She's built teams, she's led through change, and learned sometimes the hard way how to succeed without selling yourself out. Her work blends strategy, self awareness, and a lot of real talk. We're in good company with one another. So, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank
And
you.
please tell us where this journey started and where you're now and what was the
Yes.
catalyst.
The funny thing is, I spent over 25 years in the corporate world, and I never thought I would be a corporate person. So, my whole life, there's a running theme of I never thought I'd do this. And then that's where I ended up. And so I was all set to go into academia. That was my whole career path when I was coming out of college and going into grad school. And I was going to be a music education person, and I started teaching and I just found academia was not for me. I just didn't take to it. I loved teaching. I loved being in the classroom with the students, but the whole academic structure in the US anyway, how the system is set up, the politics of it, the toughness of getting tenure and all this sort of stuff, it just wasn't for me. So I thought, I don't even know what I'm doing in grad school now. Let me take a year off. I'll just get some job anywhere, make some money, and then figure it out. Then I ended up in the corporate world, and all of a sudden, I just took to it like duck to water. And I never went back to grad school. I never got my master's degree. And I just kept building a career from there. And the funny thing is, I spent so much time kind of getting wrapped up in what I thought was the corporate world. And, this is late 90s, early 2000s when I was first getting started in that space. It was a very different corporate culture in general back then. So I was working in high tech, which I, again, never thought I would be in something like an enterprise software company, but there I was. I didn't know anything about tech, but I just liked the pace. I liked the people I was working with. And I got wrapped up in this whole, competitive drive innovation, drive change. We're doing things in the market, the sort of excitement around tech at the time. And the funny thing is, looking back on it, that's actually not who I am by nature. I'm not a competitive person. I'm not a, go, go, go kind of, that's not really in my personality. But I got so enamored with getting the pats on the back and getting the gold stars, and I kept doing well. So I kept getting promoted over time. And I just got so ego driven about those accomplishments that I just year after year stuck with it, kept climbing the corporate ladder, moved companies a couple of times, but still in the same space. And then fast forward many years later, I'm in my highest level executive position. I'm literally C-level -1. I have, I'm running initiatives, I'm running budgets, I'm running all these cool things. Pandemic hits, boss leaves, layoffs come, and then all of a sudden I have 3 months to do something, and the whole world is on fire, of course, because it's 2020 and no one knows what they're doing. No company has any plan of what's going on. So that should have been the time when I stopped and said, okay, what do I really want to do? Maybe I need to get back to myself and get centered. I did not do that. I did not at all do that. I just dove straight into consulting and I thought, okay, well, if companies aren't hiring, I'll just work for myself. And I thought that was freedom. I thought, oh, this is entrepreneurship and that means I'm independent and this is freedom. I just hopped off one hamster wheel and just went into another hamster wheel. And that's when real burnout actually started to happen. I was making more money. I was working for myself. Some of the clients I was working with was wonderful. I had a good enough professional network I'd built over the years where I could get these projects pretty fast. Some clients were very stressful, and I was starting to not sleep, not eat. All these bad habits started forming, not exercise, not take care of myself, and like grinding my teeth at night, which I had never done before in my life. And that's actually when burnout hit, when I thought, this is it, entrepreneurship, I'm doing my thing. That's when I actually, kind of hit that burnout point and had to stop, regroup, say no to some projects, and say, okay, if I don't want to have a nervous breakdown, I need to actually change something in my life. And that's when real change actually took place, when I was forced to kind of stop and say, something's not right. My bank account looks great, but my body is breaking down mentally. I am like, I could feel I was getting unstable. So that's when I actually was forced to stop and say, what is happening? I thought this was freedom, working for myself. Like, what is all this? And ask some hard questions and make some hard pivots. Thankfully, I was, able to make some real pivots and shift. And now I'm in a, much happier place. The fact that I'm sitting here talking to you ladies is quite the proof that I'm doing something right. But it was a long, tough journey to get here. So I'm excited to share that story with everyone.
Every time we have a guest on and they start sharing their story, it is divinely orchestrated because as entrepreneurs ourselves, Jamila and myself, and ones that have also traversed the corporate world, I didn't get to C-level necessarily, but I was also at a senior level. And it's a cold world. And we think, as you rightfully say, but if we haven't dealt with the parts of ourselves, those conditioned beliefs that programming that is on autopilot, it's
Right.
going to follow us. Because I had Jamila bring something to my awareness in one of our conversations actually online about toxic resilience. And
Mm,
something that triggered for me was toxic positivity, because when you are raised in an environment where you didn't come from much and you start proving yourself and you validate yourself, that constant need to just stay on that hamster wheel is there.
yeah.
Here you sharing that money was in the bank, so you were abundant in that way. So now I'm going to ask you to dig a bit deeper and share with our audience, what were the parts of yourself that was mirrored back to you? It's as we call it, as Carl Jung calls it, the shadow side,
Hmm.
that is conditioned beliefs and programming. And how did you discover that on your journey when you finally realized that this is not right, this is burnout?
Right. It took me a long time to learn the difference between ego and self-worth and self-value. So
Mm,
I had driven myself and was motivated by this rewarding of my ego for such a long time without even realizing it.
mm,
If someone had asked me, years ago, oh, egotistical person, I'm like, me, I am not an egotistical person, but I completely was. I just had no self awareness at the time that that was what was driving my ambitions. And then I realized more and more that, um, hey, I have this ego, but do I feel like I'm worth it? Do I feel like I'm valued? Do I value myself and never mind my work, but just what I wake up and bring to the world every day? And the answer was no. And that was very tough to swallow.
yeah,
And I didn't get there on my own. I would love to say I was this whole self enlightenment happened, but that's not true. I was lucky enough to be introduced to a coach, and I started working with a coach, which I had never done. I had done like executive training programs, but that's different. It's very
yes, it's
academic, and
different.
you're
Yeah.
assigned a coach, but it's all for like, hey, you're in career path one, you want to get to career path two, that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
so working with a coach and having her ask these questions around self value, self worth. Do you think you deserve this kind of thing? My first 6 months was, of course, look at me. Of course, I deserve everything. But when you really start peeling back the layers and asking questions, I realized that I had so depended my success on other people's validation of my work, and ultimately, that was working against my self worth. So, for example, my boss leaves the company. Now, all of a sudden, I'm completely vulnerable, or this project didn't work out because this client didn't sign off on it. And now my work doesn't mean anything, So, I was in this kind of path. So, once I realized the difference between, hey, I've been living by ego, but I don't actually feel self worth in a really authentic way, that's when change really started to happen. And I think you have to have those horrible conversations with yourself, hopefully with the guidance of others who are more wise, as I had. And then only then can you start coming to a realization of what's really right for me. And I'll tell you, I mean, I think for a lot of people, staying in the corporate world really works for them. They still need to shift their beliefs and behaviors, as you're pointing out, to make it work better for them. But I'm not saying like, hey, if you're in the corporate world, like that's it for you, you better get out. Like that's not my message at all. But I do think you have to understand and connect with yourself of what motivates me, what makes me get up in the morning, what makes me excited about the work I do, whether it's for yourself or for a company. And for me, I never really asked those questions. So coming face to face with, oh, I never felt like I really deserved the success I did. It was all accidental, or it was all because someone else made it happen for me. Like connecting those dots really made me come to self-realization states that was really necessary.
Jamila, do you want to respond to that? Because I had a bit of a follow-up question. I wanted to dig where in your childhood was the not worthy, not deserving, or not feeling valued? Because often as kids, we're either too loud or we're too much. or we're not good enough. So we adapt to being the good girl, and so that we can comply and conform, and yet we never really feel like we belong. So did it happen in your school environment and on the home front? What's the story connected there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm Korean, so I come from, this culture where you are very much rewarded for conforming and being good and the A grade, right? So,
Yeah.
my family, for for better or for worse, was much more on the liberal side of that
Mhm.
spectrum, but we still have our cultural roots, right? We still have our environment and our atmosphere. So I definitely had that conditioning as a child. um, my parents both worked. They were very busy. I was alone. I'm an only child. So all these things combined, you're constantly trying to get attention and approval. I think that it doesn't take a psychologist to understand that pretty evidently. So for me, I did grow up with that and having that approval or acknowledgement from someone, especially an authority figure like a parent or a teacher or a boss or a whoever, I think was definitely important for me, which again, I never acknowledged or faced until much, much, much later in life. But yeah, absolutely. I think these behaviors are deep rooted. It's not like you're a badged employee and all of a sudden this pops up, right? I mean, this is something you've bred in yourself for a long period of time.
I think also, you touched on ego. Um,
Mhm.
um, and I think ego has certain connotations attached to it, as well as arrogance, confidence, or overconfidence. But for me, I think that ego in a society that is so focused on rewarding overworking and
Mhm.
taking on so many tasks, um, I think it's based from a space of insecurity, of imposter
Definitely.
syndrome, of feeling that you've got to prove yourself. And in doing that, you keep on taking on more and more and more. And that's where that toxic resilience comes in, Anissa, where we glorify the behaviors that lead us towards burnout. We glorify this, and
Yes.
we think that, oh wow, I'm such an amazing entrepreneur, and I'm multitasking, and I've got all these different businesses and balls up in the air, and I'm managing it so well. But you're actually not. It's really when you have to look at it and, like you say, go deep into self knowing, and working out, where is this coming from and how is it serving me? Is it serving me? Or is this just leading me down a path of nervous breakdown, burnout? And once you get to that stage, you never ever recover who you were, or your prior self
That's
before
right.
burnout. You can recover from it, but you will never get back to that point of strength and vigor and confidence and capability as you were before experiencing the burnout. So, for me, I think it's so important that we do that self reflection and ask ourselves the important question as to why we're doing it, because your actions and behaviors will be completely different when you know that you are doing it coming from a space of insecurity, right? Where you
Yes.
need that validation from other people. And I think that's where you find your true purpose and passion, because you take on what's important to you and not everything which makes you look at yourself from an external perspective of validation.
Yes, it's so true. And you've hit on such a truth around insecurity. And the funny thing is, I've spent the last few years just really working on this, self-development, continue to work with my coach and trying to do all these things. And that gravitational pull towards insecurity and ego is so strong that, because it's decades in the making, and then you spend the last 5 years and you still have a long journey ahead. I recently did a keynote for a group of people a couple weeks ago, and I'm preparing this presentation. And the whole time I was so just white knuckling it, like, oh God, this has to sound good and look good. And are they going to understand this message and stuff? 2 days before, I stopped and I said, why am I doing this event? What, and then as I came to the realization of, I'm not going on that stage to look smart and look awesome. I'm talking to people and I'm there to serve these people, to give them something that hopefully they find meaningful. And once I shifted to that service mindset, then I could relax and just not worry about, am I going to sound smart or, be impressive? But it's funny, the habits really pull you back, and it takes a lot of discipline to kind of pull
Yeah,
yourself out of it and go, okay, no, 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 no. That's the old, that's the old me. Let's do the new and improved version.
yeah,
I mean, I
absolutely. And I
love
think that
that.
when you come from a space of being, and you
Yes.
can be that person, you can be that passion, you can be that purpose, it takes on a totally different dimension as to who you show up, because you're no longer asking those questions as to why you're actually being it. And
Right.
in that comes the most accomplishment, the most um, enjoyment, I think, and the most authenticity of who
Yeah.
you are as a person and what your purpose for being here is. And I think that we get so caught up in how we appear to others or how we are meant to
Mhm.
appear to others,
Mhm.
that it sets us back. And Anissa, I don't know if I've shared this quote with you before, but it's something that just keeps on coming back, and I'll share it again if I have already. But it's a quote by Thomas Cooley, and it says that I am not who I think I
Yes.
am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. And it's
Yes.
about these
Mm,
perceptions of who we think we are expected to be that set us back. So if we lay ourselves open and we do the work of self-discovery and understand who we are and where we come from, our pathways are completely different, and it allows us to flow into the spaces that we are meant to be at.
yes, that's beautiful. It's so true. And it's funny, this work, I think I had this sort of misconceived notion of, okay, I've reached this point, I've had this breakthrough, so now I'm good. And you realize you're like, the work doesn't stop. Like, it's always hard. You always have to be disciplined and, go back to that grounding foundation. You never reach a point where, oh, now it's automatic. I'm just good. I never need to work on myself again because I've reached this plateau. And you don't. You have to continuously work on it. And every time you do, and every time you get a little bit better, it's great. It's so rewarding, but it does take a lot of work. So I would look at these folks who are in the self-help space and coaches and everything, and I'm like, they have it all figured out. They just
Mhm.
and what you learn is you're like, no one has anything completely figured out. You just keep working at it, right?
Definitely. I mean, as you were talking about going on for that keynote, you know, I don't like rehearsed type of
Right.
things. I don't like having death by Canva these days, not PowerPoint, because
Right.
PowerPoint's gone.
Right.
But I also find that when I'm just in service, as you said so beautifully earlier on, my message that I convey is not me watching what I'm saying and almost tripping over myself in the process of, well,
Mhm.
how is this going to come across?
Right.
But it takes work, as you say, and it's not like an overnight thing, and it's not linear. It doesn't start and
Mm-mm.
end. And I find that the difference for us who has done some work is that there's awareness. So
Yes.
with the awareness, we will learn how to pattern interrupt it. But for those that don't have the awareness, Julie, I mean, I certainly, as an entrepreneur, when you spoke earlier on, it was like, my 10-year-old said something to me the other day, and he's not he wasn't doing well emotionally, and he's
Mm.
very articulate, so he knows how to express what he needs and what's missing. And he said to me, "Mom, you're always busy." And by the way, I'm a single mom of three, and
Bless you.
so he's my youngest, and then I have a 15-year-old daughter and an 18-year-old son. But he obviously still needs that one-to-one. And as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, when you're not yet abundant and you are bootstrapping and you're rebuilding your business, you're all hands on deck. And
Oh,
as much as
yes.
I have a small team, but he highlighted something to me and he said, "Mom," he said, "why did you find a husband?" I said, "But why?" He said, "Because maybe you'll get support." So in his mind,
Oh,
he was like,
wow.
but it caught me a bit in my tracks, like, wait, hold on. What am I modeling right now? Because this was me in my corporate
Mm.
journey. 14, 16, 18-hour days. You and I both know this, Julie.
Yeah,
We've done it. We've been there. And for those that are working in corporate still, it's not a dig at corporate, but it's not necessarily for all of us. And it was
right.
the death of my soul. And it was what was my awakening. And now I'm finding that same behaviors is still there.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
what do we give our audience that is listening in? What are some of the tools that you've applied that has really been beneficial, that's
yep,
got you to this very calm and composed state of beingness and not doingness?
yeah. Well, I have to be honest and transparent. There is always some kind of trade-off. For me, it was saying no to renewing projects with clients who were so stressful for me to
Yeah,
work with. And that meant my once full bank account not so full. So,
yeah,
you know, it's I think there's this unrealistic expectation, and maybe it's the Instagram world that we live in where, everything's glossy and perfect and everyone's, you know, in Belize, having a
mhm,
cocktail while their business is just making millions of dollars. I'm like, I don't think that's actually how it
no,
works, but that's what we're sold, right? And
yeah,
I'm here to tell you that it is not easy. Be prepared. There are things that are hard, but I think there are things that are hard in every track, whether you're, in the corporate world still, or if you're a badged employee, if
mm,
you're a consultant or freelancer or entrepreneur, there's always hard things about whatever it is that you're doing. For me, it was acknowledging, like, hey, there's a trade off. This client who pays really well, if I say no to this, that means I financially am now burdened and I have
yeah,
to, do something else. So it's making those conscious decisions. That doesn't mean I don't want to, earn a good living and make money and
yeah,
have my business be successful, of course. But it was just making a decision. And sometimes the decision is on a day to day basis, depending on what's going on, and say, okay,
I
I'm going to
know.
say, yeah, it is. And it was for me saying no to some toxic clients who,
Mm,
were just draining every bit of energy I had, shifting my focus to working with people who are maybe smaller businesses, can't afford to pay me as much, but
mm,
I believe in them, they believe in me, and having calls with them is a joy because I get to help them. Working more with nonprofit organizations who, oftentimes can't afford to have things like strategists and
mm,
coaches for their
yeah,
teams and things, and cutting my rates so that I can get more experience, learn something from them, but also be able to be more fulfilled in terms of
mm,
motivating factors for my day-to-day work. But it is a trade-off.
it
um,
is.
you can't have everything. Someday, I feel like as the business grows, hopefully there's more and more stability all around that I can
Mm, mm,
build, but it's a slow build. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes, as you say, a lot of grit to do it. It takes a lot of fortitude to get up and say, okay, I haven't been this poor since I was 27, but we're going to make it work. We're going to
I mean, I
just
love
have it.
that. Jamila
um,
is trying to get back on again. I'm not sure what's
yes.
happening on her side. She's got knocked off.
Yeah, no, I know.
Maybe I'm just going to ask you to maybe try from your mobile.
Yeah.
Sometimes the laptop does give a challenge. So I've just asked her to try on her mobile. I, it's like we are talking as if it's present at the. I see Ronald's joined us from the States. Hi, Ronald. Good to see you here. Um, I'm sorry again about the Instagram peoples. I can't. I even tried to reset up the stream key. It just doesn't allow me to do anything. So we're going to make do with what we are having here. But the topic today, Ronald, is something that I think Ronald would enjoy. He's a regular of ours and has supported us from the start. But Ronald, this is about how do you own your truth within your career environments, within whichever context, whether you're an entrepreneur or in a career. But I do feel like this conversation is so timely because we do have to think about those trade-offs. Do we get to start our day based on our agenda, not what
Mhm.
somebody else dictates? We get to have flexibility, in terms of being, I could still be the Uber mom having to take my kids to school and extramurals. So the trade-offs, one's really got to sit and say, well, would I rather have that and still be present with my family? Even though I
Mhm.
mentioned earlier on, I still have to work disproportionate hours. So much
Yes.
so that my son thought I must take a husband. I told him, hey, if I find a husband, he takes away time from you too. you know,
Right, think this one through. Oh,
you
it's
got to think this
funny.
one through. But
Yeah.
it was good because this is the thing, Judy. Every relationship in our lives is a mirror. And some
Yes.
of those we get triggered by, but there are gifts and opportunities for us. I love what he's saying there. Now a senior premier.
Seniorpreneur, Ronald, I love it. So good.
I love that. So based on, those triggers and those relationships, I think that's another way that we need to really dig
Oh,
deep.
yeah.
If we're feeling triggered, it means
Mhm.
that we're no longer aligned, neither purpose aligned
Right.
or mission aligned, or
Right.
values aligned rather.
Right.
Welcome back. Welcome
Jamila!
back.
Hello. Glad to have you back.
Sorry
Um,
about that. We had a
Not
short
at all.
break in transmission. As you can
And this
see,
is
I'm
All
how
on
life
good.
goes.
so I had to just set up wherever I'm a nomad on a Friday.
No worries, you're back, you're here, and we're grateful. We were just saying that what you missed so far is that there's a trade-off. To become the version of ourselves, the truest, authentic version of ourselves, is always going to be a trade-off. And whether you're working in corporate or entrepreneurial game, it doesn't matter. To be in truth means that we lose people along the way. So I don't know if you want
Mhm.
to contribute anything there or ask Julie another question.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that. That you lose lots of people along the way. But I think, thank you, Ronald. Thank you to welcome me back. And thank you for being on the show again and always being such a continued source of support and encouragement for us. Anissa, you've experienced it as have I, that a lot of people just filter through and fall away, but in doing so we also attract a lot of the people that are meant to be in our lives and who enlighten us and support us and make sure that we stand true to our purpose. And I can honestly say, Julie, that Anissa has been one of those people in my life when I've been feeling so completely down and out, and she's there to pull me up again. And it doesn't even have to be any words spoken, but
Mhm.
just to have that person there with you, just sitting with you. And it reminds me of something that Simon Sinek said, is that you just have
Yep.
someone there to sit with you in the mud until you're
Yes,
ready
yes.
to leave again.
Yeah, it's so true. And I can definitely tell the bond that the two of you have together. It's really beautiful to see. I think that comes across so clearly on the show as well. And yeah, no one goes at it alone, right? You need support. But when you make big shifts, first of all, I think societally, especially when you're trying something new and breaking out on your own and you're not, you're working for a multi-billion dollar company one day, the next day you're just working out of your home office in the kitchen, and a lot of times people, oh, so what do you do? Oh, tell me about what you do. That's a question that comes up all the time. And to have the sort of, um, strength to say, this is what I'm doing and not feel like less than because, oh, I don't work for Google or Apple or, whatever. I'm doing my own thing and having that be a really good statement that you feel comfortable with without needing that external validation that we were talking about earlier. That's so important. Um, and the other thing is when you make a hard shift like that, whether it's gradual over time or, or accelerated, expect a lot of people to fall out of your network because they weren't ever really on your side to begin with. They were there because of the environment you were in and you were, you had to, it's like being in school, right? Like when you're in university, you're friends because you're in the same class, but you're not really friends because after you're done with school, you don't hang out. It's kind of the same thing where, 80% of your network can fall off, but the few people that are there with you supporting you through that transition and, the next phase, that's gold, right? You just hang on to those people forever. And I love Ronald's comment here after years of working with. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I think the potential every day is a new learning of, oh, I could do this. That stretches your potential even more. So,
Yes, definitely. I think the universe is playing around with you today, my darling.
oh,
All
Jamila.
good. I think you said something quite important there. They were never really quite aligned. And it's heart sore and heartbreaking because we give so much of ourselves. And I think that in and of itself is another gift and opportunity because if we're still feeling the pain, the suffering, the dis-ease
Mhm.
and the dissonance or discomfort around how others are not treating us or showing up or the expectations that we had, it means that there's still work for us to do. And I'm always mindful, like, why am I still feeling this way? If this one didn't show up in that way, okay, my codependency, because I am a recovering codependent. And as we said earlier on the segment, that need to be showing up and doing for others and then wanting it reciprocated because that's generally how I would do it for everyone. And when it's not reciprocated, then I'm going into this fight, flight, freeze mode, right? Because it's like, what's going on? So
Mhm.
our bodies always have a way of showing us that we're still in those states. But again, it's very interesting. See, Ronald's put his next message on the shift
Mhm.
beyond transactional relationships to wholeness.
Right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
And
beautiful.
it's actually a gift in that way. I think you've hit the nail on the head, is that whether you let go of that toxic client or whether you, and I absolutely adore the fact, Julie, that what you said earlier on. You mentioned that I would rather be in service to smaller clients, to MPOs,
Mhm.
and those that I see the potential in. So it was flipped. It was no
Right.
more who is seeing me and the value and my credibility and what I can bring. It was flipped on its head to say, well, hold on, this is where I can see this individual or organization or team can get to. This is my calling to go and serve there rather. And people might not quite comprehend that. And you might
Right.
rub them up the wrong way, quite frankly, because it's like, I got told, but hold on, you need to go and find work, go find a job and do your business on the side. And I'm like, no, because finding a job means that I'm going to get into environments that is not in alignment, and then my energy will be depleted. How do I
Mhm.
serve from an empty vessel?
Right? You cannot pour from an empty cup. That is
No.
a fact that you cannot deny. And yeah, I think people are very quick when you're doing something that's unexpected or unconventional in some way. Like the conventional thing, the A grade student is going to get a job, stay at that job, and you could switch companies, but you're always going to, have this sort of, safe path that you walk. Um, and when you veer off that course of the expected and do something that maybe people don't understand, or why would you do that? You have this easy corporate path. Why do this hard thing? And, and so first of all, you have to be very brave to do that and have a lot of trust in yourself to do it. But you will get those questions. And if you start buying into it, then you're only going to hurt yourself. You have to find you have to find what motivates you, and that's going to be different for everyone. And thank you, Ronald. um, but once you find it, it's hard to, it's like you can't unhear that voice once you hear it, right? Once you hear that, oh, you're supposed to be doing this, you can't turn that off. So I would say entrepreneurship is not for everyone. The three of us know that very, very well because there are compromises and costs that come with it. So, again, I don't want to suggest that this is great. Pasture is definitely greener on this side. Just hop on over. It's tough work. There's a lot of give that you have to do. Um, but if this is your calling and if this is for you, and if you're willing to do the hard work and if you're willing to do the brave things, then of course it's so worthwhile. Yeah.
Sorry, I apologize for the background noise, and
You're
I
all
think
good.
we will get cut off again. But we celebrating Women's Month in South Africa, and what I've
Yes.
found is that a lot of women feel that they have these expectations placed on them to be able to be everything to everyone. And
Yep.
we are naturally, termed as the caregivers, and life has changed, right? From the times of our grandmothers and prior to that, where that was their one responsibility is to take care of the home and the family and your kids and stuff like that. But life is complicated now, where you have to be all of those roles, but then you also have to be a breadwinner as well. And I found
Mhm.
that my engagement with a lot of women in corporates these days is that they feel this pressure to wear all of these different hats,
Yes.
and all at the same time. What is your advice to women? And I'm
Yeah.
not sure while I was off whether you covered this or not, Anissa.
No, no.
Advice to women, who are finding themselves in this situation, and not to take anything away from our male counterparts, but like I'm saying, in lieu of the fact that we are celebrating Women's Month here, give us some tools
Yes.
and practices, and some points of view on what we should do when we find
Yes.
ourselves in these situations where we've got all these roles to fulfill and where we don't ourselves feel fulfilled.
Right. Oh, it's such an important question. What I found, and my book is actually written for young women because I feel like that pattern of having to be everything to everyone, uh, from never mind childhood, but in the working world, in a professional environment, that starts right at the beginning of your career, before you're a mom, before you're anything else, and then it just compounds as you keep going because life happens. So you have kids or you have parents you have to take care of or something. So it never gets lighter. Your backpack just gets heavier with more rocks in it, basically. And my advice, and this is the hardest thing to do, especially for women, because we by nature are givers. So we tend to put ourselves last. Um, our kids come first, our parents come first, our partner comes first. And the hardest thing to do is put yourself first. But like we were just saying, you cannot pour from an empty cup. If you don't protect yourself with some kind of layer, I call it the purple layer of self protection, you have to reserve your energy for yourself first. Because if you're not there for yourself, you cannot be there for other people. You might be going through the physical motions or verbal motions or even emotional motions of giving to others, but ultimately you are not giving your true, authentic self because you're already depleted. You're starting from a point of depletion. So, whatever you think you're doing, they're just motions. It's not a genuine gift that you can give to others. So I would say learn how to build that layer of self-protection first. Now, if it's a zero-sum game at a certain point, so I'm not saying if you have 100, give yourself 98 and have 2 for others. I'm not saying that, but understand what your minimum is. Understand that if I don't do this thing for myself, and it could be as simple as if I don't do a 15-minute coffee break in the morning, I will die. You know what I mean? Like, just understand everyone has a different threshold. For someone, it might be, hey, if I save 20% for myself, that's enough. That's enough, petrol in the tank to get me through the day. Other people, it might be, hey, I need my 1-hour workout and that's it. No calls. So it's different for everyone and what stage of life you're in. But understand what your minimum is, understand where you have to be to function for others, but put yourself first. That's the number one thing. You have to love yourself. You have to have grace for yourself and make room for yourself. If you don't, you cannot have true grace or space for others around you. Not really, because that'll run out. That will deplete very fast. And then on a more practical level, there are certain things that I tell people to do. I do a lot of coaching for middle management folks right now through organizations, and a lot of them are working moms. A lot of them are moms for younger kids because they're kind of in that age range where they're dealing with school pickups and drop-offs, and some of them are dealing with, oh, my kid's going to preschool for the first time. There's a lot of this kind of stage of life stuff that they're going through, and there are some practical, easy things you can do, like use your calendar. If you look at your calendar and if you put everything on your calendar for the day, you would be shocked at how your day ratio times out. Like, people don't realize that they're spending 2 hours on something that's probably a lower priority and 20 minutes on something that is actually a very high priority, but they're doing it at 11:30 at night and now it's too late. So I would say, on a practical level, put everything that you do in a typical day or week on your calendar, down to the little things, like even like eating lunch or something like that, and see how your day maps out, and you will be shocked. Then cross-reference that with your priority list. What is the must-dos? If you must pick up your child from school, if you must get this weekly report done in time by Friday at 10 a.m., what are the musts? And start mapping those things so that they better correlate. A lot of people don't do that exercise. That is a very practical tip that I tell my clients to do. And a lot of times that shift can't happen overnight. You can't say, oh, all of a sudden, this is 15 minutes and this is 2 hours. But at least you start with knowing what your day looks like, knowing where you're currently spending your time. And then you can build a plan to, okay, my high priority items are these 5 things. I'm giving the least amount of time to it. That's normally what people find. How do I start making shifts? What can I delegate off? What can I ask for support for? Maybe, there could be a carpool to soccer camp or something, like you just start finding those ways to do it. But if you don't know where you are and where you're spending your time, you can't actually map a plan. So on a very practical level, that's where I would start.
Anissa, we're certainly guilty of that. There's
I
many
was
times
nodding.
we come into this podcast, Julie, and neither one of us. I mean, it's from 3:30 to 4:30 p.m.
Yeah.
And there have been numerous times where we've both come on, and neither one of us can even remember whether we'd had breakfast, right? So it's so important to be able to list all of the activities that you need to be doing, because and prioritizing yourself. as simply as putting it down on a calendar. And I guess it's because we don't do that, Anissa, that we forget to prioritize our own self care.
I'm
And
sure you have had these days where I had these days in the corporate world where I would go all day and I was like, I never went to the bathroom today. Like, I literally have just been sitting here all day. Never mind food. I never even went to the bathroom. Like, what
yeah,
is
yeah.
happening? And
Mhm.
it's really tough, especially as women wearing multiple hats where your sleeve gets tugged a lot, right? It could be a
Yeah.
coworker, it could be your child, it could be your mother, it could be anyone. A lot of people are tugging at your sleeve, and it's very hard to stop and say, okay, what's happening here, because you're just reacting, you're just trying to be there for everyone at the same time. And we all know this. There is no such thing as multitasking, they say. You're just doing minuscule tasks really, really fast on top of each other. And it's kind of the same thing. At some point, you have to say, okay, I can't plan for everything. There's always the surprise that the day can bring. But let me do my best to at least give myself a structure where I can try to set myself up for success in these different roles. I would color code the calendar, do these things. Um, but time gets away from us. And all of a sudden, you look up and it's dark outside and you're like, what happened? And people are just looking at you and you're like, I don't even know what to do next because there's so much to do. And women especially fall into that trap because we by nature are givers. And, so that's really the thing. Remember to give to yourself and then try to apply some practical tools. You don't need to go buy anything expensive. You don't need to go buy an Oura ring or an Apple Watch or anything like that. Just start with a list. Just start with what you have, and just take stock and inventory of where you are, and then you can actually move forward and start juggling things.
You know what I like most about this is that you weren't on earlier on, Jamila, where I said my 10-year-old has been asking to have more time with me. And one of his ideas was maybe I need to find a husband that can support me in taking up some of the tasks so that I can have more time with him. So you missed that earlier on. But coming back to your suggestion around the planning and putting it in the diary, we often say family is important to us and it's one of our highest priority values. But I know for a fact that if I had to really list everything that I'm doing, no wonder my 10-year-old saying, I miss you and I want more time with you, mom. Right? And if he could articulate
Right.
that, I'm grateful that he said that. But I said to him the other day, you know what, my boy? I'm going to put it into my diary so that
Oh,
it's
perfect.
there. And now you're reiterating this, it's quite important, but I'm not even doing that for myself. So I'm going to take your advice and realize that I need to first do it for me, then I can do it better for him because we are on
Yeah.
autopilot. Even just before this live, I just ate like 10 minutes before. And the last time I ate was this morning, early morning
Right.
breakfast.
Right.
So it is
Yeah.
that autopilot that leads to burnout. And it's a
Yeah.
slow and steady path towards that burnout, not when you get burnt out or when you have the breakdown. I think we need to talk about that too, because we assume
Mhm.
burnout is only at the point where you've had the breakdown, but actually it's not.
Right. Right. No, burnout happens. It's insidious because it happens a little bit every day and you don't even know that it's happening to you. And then it
Yeah.
just snowballs. The funny thing is we have such a disconnect typically with emotionally or mentally, I'm over here. But physically, activity wise, I'm doing this other thing. That's why sometimes we get surprised by questions like your son saying, you need more support. You need to find a husband. You're like, what? Because mentally, you're so much more there with him. But
Yeah.
physically, time wise, you're not. So a lot of times that
Yeah.
disconnect gets us very disoriented. And I
Mm.
think when it comes to burnout and leading to it, a lot of times we don't realize it because we mentally think, I'm giving to myself, I'm taking care of myself, I'm taking care of my health. But actually, you're not. You think you are, but your actions and your intentions don't always match. So I think that's where burnout can seep in. And then people are surprised, like, this happened to me. Like, I don't want to get out of bed and I'm showing all these symptoms of burnout. I didn't think it would happen to me. And you're like, why didn't you think it would? Of course it would. Look at your day and look at how your
Mm.
actions were so misaligned with where you were mentally, I mean,
Yeah.
that can really happen. And you're absolutely right. Burnout is something that can happen to us a little bit every day. So it's important that we have realistic expectations. We're going to be tired. I mean, I don't know anyone who gets enough sleep, no matter what they do with their day, right? I mean, you're always going to be tired. But do you feel like, hey, okay, I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed an hour later than I wanted, but I had a good day. I got to most of the things, not all the things, usually not all, but I got to most of the things I wanted to get to today. And then that will psychologically reset you for the next day. And that's what refills you and replenishes your energy.
Mm. I love that.
Julie, we speak a lot about what we can do in order to shine and thrive, right? And all of the
Mhm.
practices. But I do a lot of work with corporates and feedback sessions on burnout and stress. And what I've found is that a lot of people complain, like the employees complain about management style, and
Yes.
and the the pressure that they feel, um, that and that's um, inflicted towards them. What would your suggestions and advice be towards those people that are in spaces of senior management on how
Yes.
they would manage their staff so that um, they can resonate at their highest potential, whilst protecting, against burnout and stress. What would your advice be on that?
Yes. Thank you for the question. This is such an important topic. I was talking to a good friend of mine who's a former boss, and he is the first to call himself old school because he and many peers like him of that generation is like, you show up early, you stay late, you're visible, and that's what demonstrates your drive, right? Your dedication to the job. And he he was telling me the other day that he made one of his junior staff, who's Gen Z, 20 something, cry the other day based on some feedback. And he was so confused. He didn't understand what he had even said to trigger this reaction. And I think he was like, oh, this generation, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. These millennials and this. And I was like, okay, first of all, um, millennials are in their 30s now, so they're not what you're talking about. You're talking about Gen Z, and Alpha's right underneath them. So let's forget about that tagline for a second. And, you know, the way this new generation works and where they find productivity is, hey, if I really show up 100% in the allotted time that is required for my job, that's when I perform my best. And it's not this elongated, day that senior management is used to. Like, you go above and beyond, you do three people's jobs, you do it yourself. I mean, that's how I was trained. That was me, and um, the advice I have is, first of all, recognize the value that these people bring, that your staff brings to you. Why did you hire them? You hired them because they clearly showed some spark and you saw some potential of them contributing to your team or your organization. So you hired them and you're paying money for them to be here for a reason. They didn't just walk off the street and sit in the chair, right? You put them there. So why did you do that? And now, if you're going to be intentional about pulling out the best performance in them, it's about meeting them where they are. I'm not saying completely just condone everything because they need to be taught. They need to be trained and mentored and coached. So I'm not saying, hey, because I've heard it's 5 minutes into my lunch hour and now you've crossed boundaries. Like I've heard that too on the other end. So that's not so great. But I think for senior leadership, it's give them credit where they deserve it. A lot of them have creative ideas. A lot of them are bright, talented. They are motivated to succeed, just not the same way, using the same methods that you did. That doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means they're different. So now what you have to do is first acknowledge where they are, acknowledge where they're different, and then let's find a way to communicate to them so they understand your priorities and how to deliver on that. But there has to be a compromise on both sides if you want to meet in the middle. You can't just stay there and say, well, I'm senior VP and I'm expecting you to do it my way. We live in the age of AI. We live in the age of technology moving so fast, and this generation that has never been alive without the internet, right? So um, you have to acknowledge that they bring their own strengths and their own bag of tricks. So let's figure out how to work together. But it has to be them, kind of relinquishing that control of my way is the right way because I succeeded this way. You're like, yes, but the world is different. This
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
operate the same way anymore. And I think it's very hard for senior leaders to understand that because they know the formula that they know and they don't know this new formula. And the unknown is always unnerving, especially if you are a senior leader who is used to getting, success your way, right? So
I can't believe we've reached at the top of the hour. I could still carry on this conversation because there's so much more to talk about. If we bring in aspects of trying to understand how everybody's brain type is wired to think and believe, and I think that recognition and giving autonomy is beautiful, but if we're really intentional, whether it's in the workspace or we're doing personal development or skills development, whatever our roles are in our service outside of ourselves, I do feel it's important to be intentional to get to understand how others are wired. And it's not easy because we're not all psychologists, we're not all coaches, we're not all consultants or strategists, as you put it, or advisors. But when we set the intention to listen, to understand, as Stephen Covey says, to
Mhm.
really get to know the person, you will get enough cues along the way to say, well, okay, this person, this is their thought process. How can I complement that instead of
Mhm.
combat that? And you raised such a
Yeah.
pertinent point because the egoic side of us is it's my way, but that's your
Yep.
narrative and your story arc that is connected to that, right? And
Yep.
the other person's is so different. So when I do conflict resolution and collaboration, personal development work, I say, love conflict because if you love it, you're getting to learn more about yourself and others. And it's actually an opportunity to grow relationships to the next level. But the way we perceive conflict, unfortunately, is that it's a red danger zone. That's what goes off on the
Mhm.
brain. This has
Yep.
been wonderful
Absolutely.
from my side. I mean, Julie, there's been so much value that you brought here today. My
Oh,
headache's
thank
gone,
you.
just so by the way.
Yay.
Talk about doing what you love, right? And so this fills me. Thank you, Julie. From my side, I'm really feeling energized in the sense of you've brought a lot of truth and you've almost given me again that impetus to say, well, just carry on because there's truth in it. And it's okay if we're not going to make everybody happy along the way, as long as we come back to ourselves.
That's right. It takes a lot of grit and grace and resilience, everything that your podcast series stands for to make it happen. And you ladies are such wise leaders in terms of, imparting your wisdom and giving us the right direction and coaching and thoughts to really consider and follow. So it's been just a privilege to be here with you today. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank
Shamila,
you
any
so much,
closing comments?
Julie. Yeah, absolutely. And I know that we've been speaking a lot about the corporate world and about our careers and our vocations and all the rest of it. But just particularly on that last point, on management styles and stuff like that. It's such lovely information and meaningful, helpful information that you've given us, not just from a business perspective, but in understanding also in our personal lives, our relationships with our kids as well. And to have that understanding and to look at them with an open mind and an open view, of understanding and collaboration rather than just being there as a parent, who is there to be seen as someone stern and dishing out the rules and whatnot. So thank you for explaining that a lot more in depth and detail. I know that it's been very valuable to me because I'm sometimes very guilty of that. Um, and
We all are.
it's always good to have an open mind and an open attitude and to understand where the next person is coming from, irrespective of age or qualification or status or whatever the case may be. So thank you so
That's right.
much. We appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on to our live during Women's Month and helping us celebrate as well, and giving us such inspiring and motivational ideas and advice. And hopefully, we'll have you back soon again because,
I
as
hope
I said,
so.
the hour has gone by so quickly and there's still so much that we need to chat about.
Oh, I would be happy to come back anytime. I am thrilled that we were able to spend this time together, and I look forward to the next one.
Wonderful. We do normally end the live and have a short debrief if you are okay to do so. So I
Of
will end the
course.
live. Thank you for those that joined us, and Ronald, we adore you. You're always here, always engaging and positive, and something reassuring to share with all of us, along with the wisdom that you share with us. So thank you for being here on. You was on YouTube today. I think because Instagram's off. Sorry about this Instagram followers, but you can watch the replay on either LinkedIn or on YouTube. And we will see you again same time next week, whether we're in a mall, I'm at a friend's house, or wherever we need to be, but we show up nonetheless. Take care, and until next week, goodbye.